What is the thing that differentiates perversion from flirting? You can think of flirting almost like playing a game with the other person. If the goal is to have fun, and if both you and the other person are enjoying it, then it's going well. Perversion is like forcing the other person to play your weird and confusing card game. They're not into it, and probably would like to do anything else other than hear you explain the rules again. They keep politely recommending other games. But you keep thinking, they'll start to have fun in a couple of minutes if you can just show them the fun part, even though they have no interest in getting that far in the first place. Finding out you both like Mario Kart and having a tournament flirting. Tricking someone into your home brew campaign when they just want to fair and pervy. Inviting someone to play Warhammer 40,000 and explaining the rules and backstory while they wonder if sniffing your miniature paint could get them high kinky. You just don't take winning seriously in the first place, like playing Go Fish or Candyland with a little kid, or being a DM in D&D. Your purpose isn't to win, it's to make sure the other person having fun, and by extension, you'll have fun as well. If you want, you can think of flirting as a game with winning and losing. You get a point every time you make the other person smiles or laugh. They get a point every time they make you smile or laugh. It's a co-op game where you both lose if one of you doesn't get enough points. But if you do lose, then you just restart, take what you learned, and try again with someone new. Honestly, that's going to depend on the person, the environment, how well you mesh with the other person, etc. Only thing I can say is practice. Do some research on conversation starters. Watch some YouTube videos on how to have conversations. Stay away from the 10 guaranteed ways to pick up chicks type videos though, and just meet a lot of people. Remember, not everybody's for everybody. Some people will like your interests and sense of humor, others won't. That's okay. The more people you meet, the more likely you'll find someone where the pieces just seem to fall into place. A good start is asking the other person about themselves and their interests. For one thing, the more talking they do, the less you'll have to do. It will also give you a lot of leads you can use to learn more about them and find interesting ways to continue the conversation. For me personally, there are people where when I'm talking to them, it feels like a hard challenge to come up with topics to talk about. And maybe a 10th people find that 3 hours went by and I never once even had to think about what I was going to say next. Follow your interests and they will lead you to places where you'll find more people you connect well with. Different direction than Zach. The person's very excellent response, and nothing to do with the flirting question, but the way I've thought about competitive games for years is as secretly cooperative games about making art together. When people put effort into doing something competitively, what comes out of that tends to be beautiful and mutually satisfying. Playing seriously while cheating or against someone far below your skill grade is fundamentally unsatisfying because the winning isn't the important part. You're working together with your opponent to make something impressive, namely the experience of the game itself and the feeling of working to have made it. You're not laughing about losing, but you are enjoying the experience of chaffing up against your limits and seeing what you can do, seeing what you can improve. Similarly, as the winner, you're feeling relieved that your expression of skill and practice paid off, and you think to tough moments to see where you could improve further. And you can both look at each other. I'm using singular, but this applies for team stuff too, and help and celebrate the outcome and the mutual work that came into it. That's in context where you are giving it your all for those games though. That's more how to have an improvement mindset rather than how to disconnect from winning and losing altogether. So I guess all people weak at taking social clues should absolutely avoid flirting. I can't imagine situation where you asked, "Do you consent to flirting?" out loud, yet I am often the person pushing people to give it one more chance. Not a meta for literal board games. Sorry, I prefer the comment about staring. At least I can tell myself I have a chance with my clumsy efforts. If the first flirtation is too lewd and in the wrong context, then it can come off as creepy too. But by the way, plenty kinky and lewd in private. I can handle a lewd comment thrown my way. The issue is when it's a rondo that is acting too familiar and showing they don't respect any boundaries and give less than a damn about consent. Being overly lewd to a stranger is just a problem alone. But I mean, even for a kinky person who is not a prude as people like to accuse, I don't want some absolute rondo trying to get lewd with me before we've gotten to know each other first. How discreet you are being ready to take a step back if you make the other person feel uncomfortable. That's where the response from the other person comes in. I think that is the more important of these two factors. If you'd received the very non-discreet flirting and had reacted in any kind of negative way, then the other person should have stopped, otherwise they're being a creep. If they didn't know you and didn't have a good idea of how you'd react, then they were taking a gamble on coming across as a creep anyway. The main difference is the feedback. You can be as perverted as you want to be in flirting and get really gross or kinky with it if the other person loves that and is enjoying you and consenting to the flirtation, or you can barely say, "Hey, you're beautiful, wanna grab dinner sometime," and be very nice and clean, and they could still be like, you creep. If they don't consent to the flirting, or you do it in a weird venue, or they just don't find you attractive. So the trick is feedback. Read the fucking room. Read the person. If you get good vibes, start with some very tame and light flirting. Read the room again. Read that feedback from the person, check the vibe, continue as needed. If you get a bad feedback, just apologize and fuck off like a gentleman. The key is that it's never really about the initial thing you do, assuming you don't initially start helicoptering your dick and asking what she thinks. It's about how she responds to that thing. If she's responding by continuing to talk to you while staying chill and not backing away, then at least she's not immediately rejecting what you're doing. Really, it's only creepy when you're disregarding her feelings towards your actions. Looks aren't the most important thing once you have an in, but they certainly help with getting that in. I've found that women find themselves getting more attracted to people as they get to know them. If you can break the ice with a woman and there's something about you she really likes, being attractive becomes a lot less important for them. I think women just have better values in that regard. Not saying that all men care about is looks, obviously not, but women see deeper than men do a lot of the time. I think a lot of people underestimate the importance of looks. Many, because they look good enough, it doesn't matter for them. Had a friend in college who was a great guy, but tremendously unattractive physically to women. We were out at a karaoke party, and I noticed he wasn't interacting with women like us other guys were. Then he told me something that sticks with me. It was something like this: if a good-looking guy flirts with a woman, maybe it works. Even if she doesn't like him, she politely declines. She goes to her friends, and they discuss how interesting it was that he picked her to flirt with, and whether she should go flirt back. But if I said and did the same exact things, she will act offended that I even tried, might insult me to my face, and will walk away to tell her friends how creepy I was being, where they'll agree and sneer back at me as they all move away together. He actually showed us this was true a different time, told us to watch, and we did, and it was pretty much as he described. Sad in my view. I had a buddy in college who was not at all conventionally physically attractive. He was like 5'4", and a little chubby, looked like an Oompa Loompa, but he pulled more than most dudes I knew. And I'm talking about good-looking girls. It's because of his personality. I'm not sure exactly what he's doing right now, as it's been a few years, but I always thought that man was destined for politics or something. He was articulate, charismatic, nice, and confident. Pretty sure he was head of more than one club on campus. As one of my female friends put it, for some reason, he's a daddy. I think you're actually underestimating personality. I've seen plenty of good-looking dudes who couldn't make a girl laugh to save their life, and thus had lots of trouble getting laid, let alone getting girls to actually like them. I'm not that attractive, but also not boring or awkward. Personality goes a long way, but I've never been labeled a pervert. Also, pick your spot. Don't just go up to some random lady working out at the gym and bother her. That's not the venue. You'd have to be Brad Pitt to not be seen as a creep just accosting a random lady. Go to venues where socializing with strangers is normal. The bar is the classic venue for socializing. At the bar, you can break the ice much more easily, because people all expect to socialize at the bar. Or if you are a kid, school, college is one of the best socializing areas you'll ever be in your entire life. If you are an adult who doesn't drink and hates bars, look to volunteer, look to join adult courses, classes where you meet people. Join an organization and meet over a shared interest. All of these venues, everyone knows they will meet new strangers and socially interact, so it's much easier to break the ice. Don't just bother a lady trying to shop at the grocery store. Don't just bother a lady waiting in line for coffee at Starbucks. etc. And dear God, do not ruin a lady's time at the gym. That's one of the most creepy. Being interesting is just a matter of having experiences and opinions to share that are relevant to other person. Edify yourself. Read books, watch YouTube videos, get a hobby, go out and observe the world, go for walks in nature, explore the city, interact with people, go traveling to new cultures. There are lots of options, just pick whatever you enjoy. Remember, it's also about delivery. You can know a lot, but come across as a jerk. Watch how people share stories. Make sure it's short and sweet, and engages the other person to respond. Being interesting is about engaging the other person, not a knowledge contest. Being attractive is just a matter of presentation and personality. Presentation is easy no matter what your genetics are. Start with hygiene. Shower and wash your hair every day. Shave, wash your face with soap, toner, moisturizer every night. Brush your teeth and floss, and used roll-on antiperspirant. This will make sure you look like a civilized human being. Consider getting a good haircut and beard, brow style that suits your head shape. Glasses that suit your head shape. Then clothes that look nice. A button-up top, no logos, and jeans that fit right, and decent shoes, Converse or tennis shoes, okay, no runners. Make sure there are no wrinkles on your shirt, and you get the right size. Ear colors that suit you. An easy one is to match your eyes, hair, or skin. Try on different shirts and see how they affect you. Wear clothes that make you feel confident. You can get advice from the internet or Reddit. Personality is a huge part of attractiveness. No one likes a bitter person. No one likes to be around an angry person. It doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time, but we all have toxic feelings, and keep it for when you see a counselor. And yes, getting counseling, therapy, no matter who you are, really helps. I've made lots of improvements since getting counseling. Sort out your trauma, resentment, insecurities. What are you living for? Try to grow, put an effort to be more mature emotionally, and it will show. There's nothing more attractive than someone who is humble, chill, and pursuing something meaningful in life. Confidence is attractive because you are secure enough to give to a relationship, not just desperate to take. How to Make Friends and Influence People is a great book if you have the right foundation for being emotionally stable. Finally, awkwardness, social skills just comes with practice. Find a good community to be part of and imitate them. We are the 5 people we spend most time with. Be careful who you choose to imitate. Choose people who are kind, who build people up rather than tear them down, who make people laugh without being mean, who make you feel comfortable to be yourself. Observe them, imitate the way they talk, their facial expressions, their timing, their heart. Watch how they respond. Think about why they are easy to talk to and learn from them. Flirting is heavily dependent on social cues. Think of it like small talk with romantic or sexual undertones. If you're unable to understand social cues, then either you'll need to get more practice and study up on how to read people, or flirting probably isn't the best option. Flirting, like small talk, is something that people often enjoy doing, but isn't a necessity. You can find other ways to form a connection to someone besides flirting. You can probably find resources online about that. I actually kinda had this going in high school. Minus sending out mental vibes, lol. But I was a super quiet kid who hung with a random assortment of people and some popular likable people, and at parties or hanging out at lunch or whatever I'd just kinda chill and listen. Sometimes chime in if it was something relevant or was asked, and I'd still have a lot of random girls come up to me and flirt with me. Sometimes we'd hook up, sometimes not. I'm not even good looking or anything. I've been told I'm like a 6 lol, but I was confident in my silence. I don't know, I'm just a quiet person. It's not really out of shyness or anything. I just like to observe and only speak if I really have something I want to say. I got told I was a good listener a lot too. People would really open up to me a lot, like they'd never tell anyone. Just random people who I wasn't really close with. Being quiet made people comfortable to tell me things and think I wouldn't share their secrets. Maybe, and I wouldn't. I'm very adamant about keeping people's confidences. And later I found out from one of my friends that I was often talked about around school and people were interested in me. Was weird to hear. I always thought nobody really noticed or knew me. But I guess being some quiet person who was always around cool people and at parties made people curious. Still don't really get what was going on back then with all that. was a confusing time in my life. Appreciation of the scenario, like if it's a workplace, maybe keep it toned down versus what might fly at a club. Appreciation of the target's response. There's nothing inherently wrong with flirting with someone provided you're not gratuitously S3 up until the point where they've indicated they aren't interested. Let's say you're exchanging flirty banter with a colleague in a more casual workplace. You find out later they have a partner, but they still reciprocate in and seem to enjoy your banter. It's mutually understood, it's not going anywhere, but you both get a little buzz out of joking around and feeling attractive. I'd say no real harm. But if you were in this scenario and your coworker clams up and seems uncomfortable or starts avoiding you even though you know they're single, then you should absolutely stop flirting. No ifs, ands, or buts. To add on to this, because apparently a lot of people need to hear it, not every public place is free range and an appropriate setting for flirting with strangers. A club, bar, or other establishment meant for socialization and meeting people. Sure, go ahead, give it a respectful try. A store, park, or the gym? Mind your own business. I can't count how many times I've been at the gym and seen dudes who thinks it's appropriate to go up to random women minding their own business and say something like, "Hey, I think you're really cute, can I have your number?" She's there to work out. Stop bothering people who are just trying to go about their day in peace. If a conversation naturally happens, and you notice some chemistry, you can try to flirt a little and see where it goes. But don't cold approach people for the express purpose of flirting in these places. It's inconsiderate, disrespectful, and almost always going to fail anyway. If you're the one flirting, there are a lot of basic do's and don'ts that generally apply, and appropriate things to talk about based on your level of trust and comfortability with the other person. But when it comes down to it, the other person's reaction and perception defines it, which you can't accurately predict. And that's scary because you risk being a good part of someone's day or part of the problem. You could be a dude in a 20-year marriage and say, "May I have a quick sniff of your panties?" And she maybe laughs and is like, "Let's get to it." Jake Gyllenhaal could say that to a rondo at a bar and probably go home with someone that night. But generally, if you're at your most haggard and approach someone at a volunteer conference about world famine with a line like that, you're probably going to be thrown out. If you're the one being flirted with, it's really about your values and what you're into, and if you're into the other person. Socially awkward people or some with personality disorders, at least I can't do that. So I just do my own thing and live with my brother. I can barely talk to people I know closely. It's a pipe dream for some after 28 years. As someone that's socially awkward and really shy, but learned how to talk to people, it's a learned skill that is built upon by getting out of your comfort zone slowly. For example, start finding other socially awkward people and try talking with them about what they are doing or ask what they like to do for fun. Then move up to saying "nice weather" to some stranger that looks like a nice person at a bus stop. Part of the process is to make a fool out of yourself. That's everyone's fear, right? It's mine every single day. Except that it will happen for a bit while you figure out what works and what doesn't. If it isn't dangerous to life or limb, facing fears head on is a big part of growing confidence and charisma. When you feel super anxious about it, picture yourself as a famous person who's super cool and suave, and think of how they'd handle the situation. For what it's worth, that's my 2 cents. Consent and safety. Person can flirt as long as the other person flirts back. That's consent. A person can flirt as long as I know how to respond without compromising my safety. A waiter, flirting because of his/her job, they will not berate to follow me. My boss, perverted because I may not be safe to say no. An unknown man on the street, depends if I feel safe to say no and want to say no. Person which is not my peer group, may be unsafe because we communicate differently. Most times saying no is what puts us in a vulnerable place, because that's when their behavior becomes unpredictable. Will they become angry about the rejection? Will they hurt us physically or mentally? Will they expect us to behave in a certain way? Then flirting becomes perverted. Sometimes may not seem too much of a difference. If you're both into it, then you can definitely classify it as flirting. If only one of you is into it, the one that's not into it may definitely view it as perversion. I would say there is a solid difference. Just hitting on somebody or doing something flirty isn't necessarily perversion, but even if you're both into it, you can both be perverts about it. It kind of depends on the other person's comfort level. If you're both able to be perverts and enjoy it with each other, then that can be your way of flirting. It all depends on chemistry. Pervert is just flirting without the other person wanting it. You gotta understand how the other person feels before you do it, and while you're doing it. Even if they like it at first, that doesn't mean you win, that just means you scored a point. They can still refute, and it's your responsibility to stop and maybe apologize if necessary. Flirting is honest and done with good intentions. Hello, you are neat and pretty. Would you be interested in seeing if I am neat and pretty for you? Whereas perversion is aggressive and has bad intentions. I am going to make you feel awkward and intimidated, because this is how I experience the ghost of a sensation in my dead and maladapted Sue. The difference of perversion and flirting is the absence of presence of consent. The persons engaging in conversation must acknowledge directly or indirectly that the advances of romantic interest are mutual or one-sided, and if it cannot be confirmed between one party or the other, it is construed as confusing or even sometimes unnerving and creepy. It is important to be clear in what you want, even if it is not clear or pertinent to the current situation. The presence of attraction is strange and ever-flowing and changing. It is not something to hide and regret, but needs to be something of mutual understanding. Without that, it is nothing but crushing sadness and fear. Be honest with who you feel for. Perversion is a term that refers to behavior that is S3 deviant or abnormal, and can include actions that are harmful, abusive, or illegal. Flirting, on the other hand, is a behavior that is intended to be playful and friendly, and is typically used as a way to show interest in someone or to initiate romantic or S3 attraction. One key difference between perversion and flirting is the presence of consent. Flirting is typically consensual, with both parties aware of and agreeing to the behavior. Perversion, on the other hand, often involves non-consensual or coercive behavior and can be harmful or abusive to the victim. It is important to respect boundaries and consent, and to be aware of the difference between appropriate and inappropriate behavior. If you are unsure whether a particular behavior is appropriate or not, it is always a good idea to ask for consent and to respect the wishes of the other person. Context, mood, proper gradual escalation, a balance between trust and tension, and adjusting to the feedback you get. Context is important because it dictates how much you're allowed to do before things get weird. Mood is important because it determines how receptive someone is to flirting. Proper gradual escalation is like braking in an engine. You start slow, then take it up a notch and notice the responses. Good response? Then you can take it up another notch. Bad response means you need to back off a bit and then try again. And if you rev it too hard, things are going to break. That is, push too hard too fast without gaining the necessary trust means there's a high probability you'll get shot down. Trust means just that. In this case, making the other part trust that you're not going to make it weird. You can handle rejection in a civil manner if it comes to that. You're going to respect the other part's boundaries, and you're not going to shout from the rooftops what you've done, because a gentleman never kiss and tell. S3 tension go hand in hand with trust and escalation. Too much tension without the necessary trust makes you a creep. Too little tension makes you a friend. Escalation plays a part because it shows your intentions and that you can read the room and back off if necessary. Adjusting to feedback means just that, but goes beyond words. Body language, facial expressions, and things like voice tonality and choice of words all tell you things the words themselves can't or won't tell you. Unfortunately, this is something only experience can teach you, so trial and error is your friend.